Going. So I will let you three. Actually, we got Lucas here now. So I will let you four introduce yourselves really quick before we get going.
Nice. Who wants to go first? Go first. Should I go first since I opened my mouth?
Yeah, you're on the East Coast, so you should go first.
Oh man. Well, hey everybody. I'm really happy to be here, and it's glad to see everybody. I wish everybody would turn their video on so I can kind of get a scan of the group. Hey, so I've been doing this for a very long time, and I was just doing the math, and I'm kind of shy to tell you how long it's been, but I got my first internship at the age of 17, and I'm originally from Iceland, and I've lived in the US for about 25 years now. And weirdly, I've been in Atlanta for the whole time, Atlanta, Georgia, southern USA. To make a long story short, I worked at CNN. That was kind of my path to the USA. So my range is pretty wide. I've been anything from illustrated children's books, comics. That's how I started. I've done digital design. I've done a lot of typeface design. I've been a creative director. I've been a business owner. Right now, I sold my business, and I'm an SVP at a digital agency called If Then, digital and brand design agency. So, but I'm kind of all over the place, but at the heart of it, I'm really just a designer, and I wish that I could just really call myself a designer, but titles kind of bounce all over the place. So, but design is all about solving problems. So that's what I would call myself, designer. So, hello everybody.
All right, James, you're unmuted, so we'll let you go next.
Sure. Hi, I'm James Butler. I was born in Japan and grew up there and Hawaii. And I've been based in the San Francisco Bay Area since 2000, working with, a whole variety of clients, including the SF MoMA, Jewish Museum, Autodesk, Dolby Laboratories, and currently Apple and Gallery Japonesque. And I'm really excited to share this time with you and hope I can answer any questions you might have.
All right, and then since Cody is in my little docket of people I can see, we'll let him go next.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Cody Proksa. I was born and raised outside of Chicago, Illinois. Went to school not far from Atlanta, Georgia, just nearby at Auburn University. My sister lives in Atlanta now. But came out to Dolby in San Francisco after graduation and worked there for 3 years with Lucas and James, and also Grayson, who's in the audience. I don't know who let him in. And then after Dolby, I spent some time at Cosmo Laboratories. They're like a soft goods lab in San Francisco. Doing a small contract gig with Frog Design right now. And then in a few weeks, I'll join Williams-Sonoma to do some like cookware and prep tools for them, kind of a departure from the consumer electronic stuff I've been doing. But yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Haven't been doing this a whole long time, so far off from Stefan, but hopefully I can throw some insight. I don't know, we'll see.
All right, and last but not least, bringing up the rear, we got Lucas.
Yeah, Grayson's hiding on here. What's he doing? Yeah, I'm Lucas Saule, industrial design background. I went to Art Center in Pasadena, then was at Frog Design for 5 or 6 years. I've been at Dolby for 6.5 now, maybe a little bit over. My career has gone from designing consumer electronics to experience through 30,000 square feet of experiential space in New York to apps, kind of all over the place. I would work on the side just to kind of make sure that I'm doing something with my hands, rather than doing kind of the digital CAD and sketching and managing and creative directing. So it's kind of just an escape from all of that. But yeah, happy to be here and kind of chat.
All right, so we'll jump into the first question just to get us rolling, and wherever it goes, again, this is open dialogue, so if you guys want to chime in with questions, feel free to. So let's see which one we shall go with. This might be kind of a all over the place answer, but given the way things are right now, what is one of the most challenging aspects of designing remotely that you guys feel or face?
I mean, I can take a shot at that. It's the collaboration has been the most challenging, and I think it's also maybe been the most rewarding. I think when COVID hit, we really had never done a collaboration like this digitally from far away, where everybody is far away. Sometimes you'll have people dial into a meeting, but when everybody's remote and you can't run over and talk to somebody right next door, it becomes a challenge. But I think we've done a decent job at kind of adjusting and going through that and working with different time zones and different people's skill sets, and we're learning new tools. There's a lot of new online collaborative tools that have come out of this that I think have helped proficiency. And I'm kind of interested, I think the biggest thing for me in the future is how is it going to start to help working remote plus working in the office? I think there are a lot of pros and cons of that. And this, I think, allows people, it's given them people have flexibility. And so it'll be interesting to see what the future kind of holds.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, collaboration has been a challenge for me. A lot of my clients are in Japan, and so there'll be, myself working here in the SF Bay Area, having to hand files over to another designer in Japan, and ensuring that we allocate the time to run through the project together, make sure that handoff is, smooth. And often there's this moment of asynchronous design where we're each designing, but then we're handing each other's files over to push it even further. And so that's been, fun, interesting challenge.
I think I don't. So you ask about challenges of working remotely. I actually think in a lot of ways it has brought the team a little bit more together. So I think we collaborate a lot better now than we used to. So even if you have somebody sitting next to you, you're not always kind of looking over their shoulder. So there's a lot of tools that we've been using that we're able to work together as one. So we've been using Miro, we've been using different collaboration tools like Dropbox, Paper. So I feel like things get done super fast when we're in this kind of in-between space. And just being an introvert, I think it just works out really well for me. What I love the most is when you have people like looking at all of you here, I can see, how you live, and it just gives me a better picture of everybody. I can see your families, I can see your kids. So in some ways it's bringing work and life together in a way that didn't exist before. Whereas, I have to go to the office and I have to, do my commute, and, my commute at my current workplace is about an hour and a half both ways. So that eats up a big chunk of my time. So now I basically roll out of bed, brush my teeth, and I'm on Zoom, right? So in some ways, I think it's just, it brings people closer together in a lot of ways, and, brings, I'm able to work with my family, my kids, my 2-year-old joins on a call sometimes. So it just I don't know. There's some silver lining in all of this that I think that we're gonna be working through maybe in 2021. In how do we get back to the office? Are we gonna want to go back to the office? Another point I want to make is that being kind of leading a team and being at the executive level at a company, I have an insight into productivity, and the productivity just shot through the roof in the first few weeks of when we started working from home. So that was kind of a shock for us, because we were kind of unsure of, you know, are people going to have internet connections, or is this going to work out, or you know, is all of this going to collapse? Are clients going to actually be okay with this? But so far, it's just kind of, it's been working really well.
Yeah, that was one thing. I don't think our productivity dropped at all either. There was a learning curve, I think, with all these new tools like Miro. It's been a lifesaver for everything. But really, when we started to look at it, we were at 95, 100% of where we were hitting before as far as the output for content. And it obviously shifted what we were working. I was working on an experiential space before this, and obviously no one's going to experiential places now. So it shifted some things we're focusing on with design, but for the most part, it gave us other opportunities to start looking into and take a step back and figure out what do we want to kind of move forward with, and what this new world that's coming up.
Yeah, I do agree. Speed has accelerated, I think, for, you know, the team members that I work with. I think people are so much more focused too, because they're juggling projects in life, and, you know, it's really been a lot faster getting through, you know, ideation, and then shifting quickly to visually articulating a direction.
What are your thoughts, Cody?
I think it's to that point, like, it's funny. I think to some degree working from home allows people to kind of work more how they want to work, just in like space and time, and like not having a row of people next to you, like watching over your shoulder sometimes can be helpful to some people. And being able to like go take a call from your backyard if you've got one, and do stuff like that. It's like kind of somewhat good for the mental game a little bit, which has been huge. But I think to bring a challenge back into it, because I know there are a lot of positivities to the home situation, but being like from the industrial design aspect of it, and making like physical products, I've always been at places that had really incredible shops to build prototypes, and that doesn't happen anymore. I don't have access to that, so it becomes a lot harder to kind of build those models and bring what you're designing in a computer out to the physical world. Like, I don't own a 3D printer, so I'm relying on somebody else who has a 3D printer to like print stuff and either send them to me or just like give me the rundown on how it turned out. As kind of a base level challenge, like a pretty obvious challenge, I guess, but is like a huge part of my design process, and it has been a huge effect on it. You've had to kind of figure out how to make crappy prototypes out of cardboard in my room.
That's actually one of the, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things that I feel like a lot of the students here have to deal with, because when we're all on campus, all the facilities are open, all the labs are open, but you know, now you got to kind of make do and DIY and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of nice to hear that happens in the upper levels of the design world as well. You guys are not alone.
Yeah.
Definitely took what I had for granted.
Well, so we got a bunch of questions rolling into the chat box. I'll ask one more pre-prepared one before we hit those. So a lot of the things you guys talked about are actually kind of like reflected in these pre-prepared questions. One that I'd ask you, because I know our students kind of have to deal with this from like meeting with us and these events and, you know, classes. How do you guys deal with Zoom fatigue, with like all of the hours, all kinds of days and all that sort of stuff? What do you guys do to that sort of stuff? And I would mute way. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, video fatigue, at least for me, is real. And there will be times where I think we all encourage each other to be on camera, but there will be times where it's like, you know what, I need to take a couple meetings just off camera and just pace around while I'm kind of doing that. And then there's other times where it's just like Cody's saying, like, you're able to balance yourself a little bit more at home. I'll take a break, like a 5-minute break, and lay down on my bed in between meetings and just kind of decompress and get away, because you are in one spot for quite a while. But yeah, I think there's other ways where you can kind of deal with it. Sometimes like the flexibility of the work of working from home is at lunch, it's easier to go out and go for a run or do a quick workout. And I think that's like, that helps just with the mental stability of everything. And it's actually been a benefit with all of this is the work-life balance, I feel, is a little bit better than it was before.
Oh, I love it. Lucas, I'm learning something. So I was just laughing because I had a day the other day, and I think I had 30 minutes to make a bathroom run in between some meetings, and and then I got back on. But I feel like we're meeting a lot more now than we used to. I think it's probably just to kind of compensate for the lack of, like, you know, kind of physical, you know, being in a physical space. So it's kind of nice to be able to see a variety of people at a variety of times. But, you know, and I was just telling you, Josh, that my first meeting was at 9 o'clock this morning, and now it's what, 9 p.m. So I've pretty much been in meetings all day. So you kind of get used to talking a lot and you know, I mean, I tend to kind of see the positive side of things, I think. So I feel like this has actually kind of helped me be a better communicator. But in terms of, like, you know, screen fatigue, I take walks around the neighborhood when I can. So, but I don't know. I think it's just a matter of soldiering through things sometimes, and I think that's kind of what I do.
I've been trying to pace myself. You know, a bad day might be, you know, 10 meetings, and I've done that. That was pretty painful.
Yeah,
An hour and a half each. The day's gone, but I do try to block out a little window, you know, separate from lunch, actually, just to have that self moment, whether I take a walk or, you know, catch up on even Instagram or, you know, a film or something. But I need that moment in the day, you know, just personally, to, because I'm going to push through. You know, I tend to work hands-on design later in the evenings, you know, after the meetings. And so just to break up the day like that, I think helps.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I can't remember who I heard this from, but I heard somebody I know blocks off 30 minutes in the morning and at the end of the day and calls it their commute, and like will go for a walk in that 30-minute time, just like keep that. I was like, that's really smart. I haven't started doing that, but I was like, what a great way to idea. Like, yeah, you're like, yeah, just keep the commute going, but you're not going anywhere. You're just right back to your desk. Like,
okay, so we'll jump into our first question that we have in the chat. So this actually kind of applies to, like, Lucas, you mentioned some of like the like all over the things you like to do, like woodworking and stuff. For people with a mixed discipline background, do you benefit from highlighting that when you guys are, you know, trying to break into the industry, or is it better to show a company your dedication in one specific area?
I mean, James, I think you should start off on this because you did a great job, I think, bringing in a lot of junior talent into Dolby, and you've got a good eye for that. So kind of want to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I always appreciate people that have a multidisciplinary background. Personally, I'm interested in content creation as well. So photography, videography, filmmaking. And yeah, I do think it's important to share all of who you are, because that's really, you know, what's going to make you unique. And then, you know, within your portfolio, if there's a particular passion or area that you want to really push, then celebrate that somehow, right? Maybe do something a little bit extra with that. But I think it's important to understand who you are as a whole creative.
Yeah, and I think even looking at what we're doing right now at Dolby, when we are looking at new portfolios for interns, junior designers, we want visual design, UX, experiential, just like almost a smorgasbord of all of these skill sets, at least pertaining to our design or our design team. It's going to differ, but I think I echo a lot of what James is saying is a broad range of skills and then maybe focusing on a few where you kind of really those are your strong suits. I think again goes a long way.
As an interesting question, mixed discipline. I think that design is not one thing, and especially in my case, I mean, you know, just having kind of bounced around different disciplines. I think it's important not to spread yourself too thin. Kind of focus on what you're good at, where your interests lie. I'm interested in the way that the question is phrased too. So show your company your dedication in one specific area. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to be valuable to the company, but at the same time, there's kind of two tracks going on. It's the company and what you bring to the company and your clients, but it's also your own career path. So I think it's important that you are able to kind of evolve or develop your own voice. What I look for in a designer is somebody that has a pretty good grasp on how to design for a kind of multi-sensory experience. And what I mean by that is that, you know, you're not just a digital designer, you're not just a production designer, you don't just do one thing, but you're able to design many things. And when I think about the word design, I don't think about just making things pretty. I think about, you know, a lot of times when I sit down and I design a project, I design the words. So if I work with a copywriter, you know, a part of my job is just to take his, you know, 10 words and make it into 3 words for a headline. So in other words, like I'm designing the words before I actually make them, you know, type them out, pick the typeface. You're designing the words, you're designing the images, you're designing the message. So in a lot of ways, like I can't design something that doesn't make sense to me. So I will relentlessly engage in conversations, push back on clients, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You know, let's try to, you know, find some signal in the noise. So at the end of that process, I think you have kind of touched all of the kind of the different disciplines that you know, because think about it this way, you are responsible for the output. So the final product is only as good as the work that you put into it. So if you think of yourself as kind of one you know, cog in the wheel, then you don't have control over the quality, and then you kind of lost the project. So, but if you assert yourself and you make sure that, you know, the output makes sense, don't be afraid. Like, you know, voice it. Like, ask questions. And I love collaborating, even like with young designers that challenge me. Like, Stefan, like, what do you mean when you say that? Or, you know, Stefan, you're full of shit. That's my favorite. Because it's like, wow, okay, this person is really, you know, thinking about the final product, and it's all a means to an end. However you get there is all just a process. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's really how I think of a designer. You're designing for all senses.
Yeah, and I think to add to that last point, I think the challenging that was always a great thing when I came out as an intern was working with one of my mentors, Paul Bradley at Frog Design. He would go toe to toe with me with arguments on design and on solutions. And 98% of the time I was wrong, but he would give me the time to kind of learn and think through all of it. And I like hearing that when we're hiring young designers, we're hiring you for your ideas. And so I think when I've had some designers when they first come on, it's, well, what do you want the design to be? And I don't know, I can lead you and help you, but I'm hiring you for your ideas. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, you've been brought on for a particular skill set and your opinion, and I think that's something that, like, just being confident presenting that is key.
Love it.
Cool. Okay, so there's a lot of questions, but since Grace was the first one here, I will read her question next. So she gets preferential treatment here. Could you guys, for a brief moment, please talk about some things you guys look for specifically in an industrial design portfolio?
Cody?
Okay,
Industrial
I can try. As someone who has never hired someone, I mean, I've been a part of some like meetings where we like look at people's portfolios and stuff, but I've never kind of pulled the trigger and been like, that's the person we need. But you know, I think what's funny, so this kind of actually melds like both questions, like the multiple disciplinary thing and this one. Is that, so like 80 to 90% of my portfolio, professional portfolio, is consumer electronic stuff. But my next job is going to be doing kitchenware for Williams-Sonoma. And so it's kind of a departure. But one of the interviews that I was in, I spent more time like with one guy, not even talking about my portfolio, but he commented on some of the like other stuff I had on my portfolio, which is like I have like an inspiration board kind of thing, and he really like connected with that and not any of my like actual work, and we spent some time talking about that because I think he got a sense of like a broader sense of my like personal tastes and interests in that than like, you know, the stuff that I'd done. So I think like that can be an important part, is like trying to show your own personal style and taste, which can be kind of difficult. But ultimately, like that, to Lucas's point, it's like you're being brought in as a junior or as an intern for your like fresh new ideas, not necessarily like how well you execute it, because like they can kind of help with that. But so yeah, showing that kind of like taste and flair in your whatever you're bringing to the table is can be really important.
So you know, I'm not an industrial designer, but I mean, I think we're all branches on the same tree. So I think there's three things that I look for. One is talent, which is kind of the obvious one. Like you have to be good, or you know, at least you have to show that you have the potential to be good. You don't have to be super refined or buttoned up. You know, a junior level is, you know, I expect that I have to go through some time kind of refining that individual. And I think it's a little bit of a give and take when you work with a new designer. I'm actually kind of investing in somebody. So talent is the biggest thing. Another thing that is really important is passion and drive. And the third thing that I look for is taste. And one of the first questions that I will ask you is, you know, who are your influences? And if you have the right answer, then there's an instant connection, because all of these three things, they kind of work together. It's almost like a flywheel, right? So if you have like big influences and you have big dreams, you know, like let's say in my profession, it would be like somebody like, you know, Lou Ballin or you know, one of those like giant you know, graphic designers. So if I know that you have that level of taste and you know, you're well studied up on some of the giants in the industry, then I know that you're on the path to that point. So and then that's where passion and drive comes in. So how fast will you get there? All depends on you, your work ethic, you know, how just, you know, obsessed you are with design. So talent is actually, it's basically just a springboard. It's kind of the runway. It's not everything. I used to think that, hey, I'm just this talented, you know, designer, and then I realized, I mean, the road behind me is paved with talented designers that just never went anywhere because they just lack that drive. Now, and then I'm gonna halo all of this with personality, because if you're an asshole, you have to be pretty damn good for me to work with you, and for me to kind of look past that and forgive some of those things. But personality is really important. Like working with somebody that is just like a nurturing, nice person that makes me better as a human being. I think that is something that we're always looking for. So that would be my those are the things that I usually look for in a new designer.
Yeah, sorry about that. I would agree with that. The talent is that's the entryway almost. Like especially at that junior level, when you're looking for a nice rendering is going to get you in that door. But when you start to layer on everything else that Stefan's added, that's really what's going to sell you. And like with industrial design, for me, yeah, the sexy rendering and the nice product, it's going to get you get you for the interview, but then I need to be sold on the process and how well you started to communicate and understand the issues, the problems, the opportunities, and then execute on that and really kind of then go through all of it. And it's hard. The process is really hard to showcase in a portfolio. And I think that's where you start as a person, when you bring that in the interview, that's where it can kind of come to light and really kind of push things forward.
James, any thoughts?
Yeah, along those lines, I think I also try to read into their ability to collaborate. So everything they said, plus, getting a real sense for their, within their student projects. Was it just a solo effort, or did they pull in someone from a different discipline to execute something even greater, right? So as a designer, showing that you collaborated with some of the lead photography students, or with CCA, maybe it's the architecture department, you went out of your way to collaborate. And that says a lot, right? It says a lot about you wanting to excel, your willingness to kind of be humble with your discipline and learn from another. And yeah, I don't know how much you do that as part of the official curriculum, but I always appreciate seeing work that is beyond the individual.
Cool. All right.
Thank you, guys.
We got somebody who unmuted themselves to ask a question.
Oh, sorry. It was just me saying thank you guys for the answers.
You're very welcome, Greg.
So Josh,
first.
So Josh, to Grayson Bird's question, should we tackle that one next?
Sorry, what was that? Grayson's question? Okay, yeah. That is a two-parter, and we'll go back to the ones that are before that. So,
okay.
Question.
Grayson is John Carroll Kirby. That's the answer to that question.
What music do you have on repeat during 2020? For myself, it's the Van Halen, David Lee Roth era. And then, what about you guys?
There was an article headline that I saw about how your music tastes have been changing over COVID, and I think that's been true to me. I was listening to a lot more like hip hop before COVID, and now it's been a lot more chill stuff. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because Grayson's not around to influence my music taste anymore. So that might be it.
You know what I've been doing is I have this turntable that I got maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, when am I going to use this turntable? And now, I don't know, 300 records later, I sit in here and I just kind of spiritually like turn these albums, flip them, and I listen to them like with just a sense of purpose. I can touch it and feel it, and there's this bond that I now have with this like dusty vinyl business, and I've been listening to a lot of jazz, I just can't get enough of like the old like, you know, bop, post bop, you know, the Blue Note stuff. It's just fantastic. It's perfect for that album format.
James, Cody, you want to chime in real quick before we jump back on the train?
I'll put mine in the chat because I doubt anyone listens to this artist, but it's Ichiko Aoba, Japanese artist, kind of out there, pretty mellow. Please listen when you have a moment.
Oh, I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Very cool. I think, Lucas, I think it's funny, like, I'm of the camp of like a lot of hip hop, but I have kind of changed and tapered where nowadays I listen to a lot of like 80s like synthwave stuff when I'm like feeling weird. And also to put an artist out there, Grayson, so maybe you can start listening to him more, doing a lot of Blood Orange, AKA Devontae Hines. He's really talented, and he's like kind of like chiller, but with still got some hip hop in there because that's hard to run away from for me. But Blood Orange a lot of in 2020 so far.
All right, we'll get to the hardball question in a moment. I want to let people ahead of you get back to where they were. So the next serious question is, what general advice do you guys have for upcoming designers coming into a post-pandemic work environment? Are there specific things I can do now as a sophomore that might not be so obvious but will help me after graduation?
I think we're all thinking the same thing. You know, what's going to happen after? I mean, there's so much like pressure from all you know, from you know, work, from you know, politics, from the economy, that we're all kind of thinking, you know, when is there going to be a release and what is that going to look like? I think there's, you know, I'm getting out of my comfort zone here a little bit, but I think there's going to be some time until we get to that state of normal. And I don't think there's going to be, we're not going to go back to the way we used to do things before. You know, what does that look like? I'm not sure. But, you know, I think all creatives were optimists, right? We have to be creative, right? Most of the time, think about it, you're creating something out of nothing. Whatever you're creating tomorrow didn't exist today. Or you're taking something and you're making it better that existed in some sort of a, you know, worse state today. So I think it's just I think you just have to be, you know, think about it in a cyclical way. Like when I graduated back a long time ago, there was a recession in Iceland, and I got a job at a print shop, and I was like, wow, you know, somebody at my level, like, what am I doing at a print shop? And I just thought that was it. I was like, you know, just severely depressed. I was just driving around like, you know, what is the future going to look like? Is this going to be where I'm going to end up? Is this it? And then of course you have a breakthrough, right? And then you slowly kind of come to your own. You kind of find your voice. You kind of, you know, you find not only your voice, but you start finding people that are kind of like-minded, finding the right place. But it takes time, and you know, don't give up. Even if you graduate, you know, even if you're about to graduate, and there's no immediate jobs, because I think that what is happening now is a lot of agencies they're downsizing, so everybody's kind of, you know, playing it very carefully right now. So you know, don't take it personally, and don't be discouraged.
Yeah, to echo that, like definitely like keep your head up a little bit. Like don't get. I went through a couple stints of dry work or like just joblessness, where like and sending out a lot of resumes and applications and stuff, and it can get really hard, especially when like you don't get responses or you get no's. So just keeping your head up, I think, is like, it can be strong. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much, I think there was part of the question of what could they be doing differently, and I don't I'm not sure if there's anything you can be doing differently. I think everybody everybody will say in these uncertain times, and so the future is kind of, we're creating it as we go along. And so I think it's still pushing forward and kind of doing what you enjoy and what's making you happy. But I don't know. I think it's very similar to where I graduated in early 09, right after the recession, and there was nothing. And like I wasn't even thinking about the recession when I was going through school. I was just trying to finish school, and then when I got out, I was like, oh, there was nothing for me. But eventually, you land, and then you kind of go from there.
I think one thing that makes this like time really interesting is, Stefan, to your point, like people are, agencies and companies like don't want to keep headcount on, but there's still some work coming in, a lot of work coming in. So there's a lot of like contract stuff, but it can be like really tricky, yeah, because they don't want to hire on full-time people that they have to like deal with. So they just bring in the contract stuff, and yeah.
Everybody's adjusting right now, and they're all trying to figure what's going on right now and what's the future. And so I think it's only, as you're saying, more work is coming in. We're, at least at Dolby, we've shifted, and like all of a sudden digital work is huge, and like we have put a lot of effort in that, and we're like, okay, we need to figure out and find more UX designers and focus on that. But we still are planning for experiential to come back. It's just, how is that going to start playing through as like a holistic path of UX to digital to physical products and all of that, the whole cycle, where we were kind of maybe a little bit more siloed before.
James, any thoughts?
Well, I think it's the same thing, where looking for those opportunities to collaborate. And that can be amongst your peers, or even reaching back out to, some of these team members here, right? Cody, Stefan, and seeing if there's something that you can help with. I mean, I think utilize, this opportunity to try to do something greater than you would typically do just within your discipline.
Yeah, can I add something? I realized that there was something that I left out that I think is really important. And it's the idea of self-publishing. So, kind of being in school is really, it's a precious time. And sometimes I kind of regret not kind of making more out of my time in school. And right now, being in digital and being kind of in that graphic design, digital space, I've never been busier. I mean, I think I'm like 130% utilized, which is kind of the currency with my agency. Like, how much utilization did you have this week, Stefan? And like, but so what that does, it eats into my side hustle, and I love charging my batteries with creating. In my case, it's creating typefaces, and I literally have not been able to do work on a typeface for the past couple of years. And that is really kind of the what drives me as a designer. It gives me my identity. So don't think of kind of corporate America or the agency world as the place that you need to, or you're not that puzzle that needs to fit into that corporate America. And I know that capitalism is big in the US. I come from a little bit of a different culture where you have a little bit more breathing room as a designer to like create autonomous work. So self-publishing, I cannot emphasize how important that is to everybody. Create your own projects, start your own companies, create your own products, everything that you wanted to do. If you identify a gap, now then is the time to work on it. It'll only benefit you. It'll give you some DNA into who you are and who you will become. But anything that you self-initiate will kind of help create what your individual voice is. So self-publishing is really important, especially now if things are slow.
Yeah, I think that would make you a more attractive candidate as well, right? When you're looking for work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like if I don't have to job interview you, if you just come in and you're just like a self-made person, we could just skip all the, you know, question and answer and me. Like if you come in and you've demonstrated that you are valuable, then it just cuts, you kick the door open, and it kind of flips the dynamic. It's like you don't want to come work for me. I want you. I'm going to come looking for you and making you that offer. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So our next question, now that we can't experience some designs as we would in the before days, the long ago, as they would say on South Park, such as in the case of Lucas's experiential spaces or public touchscreen interfaces, do you guys anticipate that social distancing / work from home will continue to be a constraint in the design process, or do you guys design with an in-person return in mind?
I mean, we're definitely designing with an in-person returning. I think you put a different lens on it. I think when COVID first hit and when New York was starting to lock down, we started thinking about how do you augment the space for when we reopen, and it's taking the same space and changing it slightly to fit code and make sure people feel safe. I think now that we've had a chance to really step back, it doesn't become necessarily a constraint. It just becomes another input into your design, almost like as a hurdle that you have to come over, whether that is marketing, a business objective, an obstacle with the design or ergonomics. We now have to start designing for that. Whether it starts to fuse, like I was talking before, the experiential and the digital, how do you start to think about it holistically? If people they want to go out. I mean, you can see people want to go out. You hear about all these parties being busted. But there's also a good majority of us, like myself, I don't really feel comfortable going to a movie theater right now. So how do you kind of merge that, where it's like, how would you start to design and create a space where people can have fun, go out, learn something, participate, but also have a sense of safety among them? And so I think that's where we're starting to think about it. Is it's just another input that you have to think about with design. It's not so much a constraint. Anybody else? Everything else in design, it's a constraint.
No, I think it's really well said. I mean, like I said before, I think as a designer, like we are probably, I mean, the whole premise of design is optimism. Yeah. Whereas there's like, oh, normal person will be overwhelmed and make a list and like, they're just kind of maintaining things. But as a designer, you're creating things, and you're creating things for a need, and whatever the need becomes, is, you design for that need. I mean, it's a golden era for like 3D printing. It's a golden era for companies that create applications where you can collaborate. So there's a lot of kind of silver lining or opportunities in this space that we're in right now. So I think it's just our job to just identify what that is. So positive stuff.
James, Cody, any thoughts? No worries if you don't.
It was kind of a pointed question to Lucas. I'll let him just let him have that one.
All right, then. We'll mosey to the next question, since we're we're coming up to 7 our time, and we want to be conscious of your guys' availability. We got 2 questions left. One of them, being seasoned design professionals, what do you guys believe is missing in the current design world / community right now?
It's a good question. What's missing in the design community? I mean, you know, I've been kind of rethinking a lot of things in terms of like, you know, what my role is. You know, I've worked with, you know, a lot of different, you know, big range of clients with different purposes. And I'm really attracted to clients that actually have a purpose. You know, they're not just creating processed food that is going to, you know, contribute to obesity, that, you know, we're just going to have to create little lies for, you know, in my kind of you know, design world. So I really like the idea of like, you know, us designers working for a, you know, a bigger cause, you know, like a larger purpose and a bigger cause. So there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about. I'm actually going, like I was telling Josh and I was telling James earlier, you know, me and my family, we're going to go to Iceland for 3 months. I'm going to work from Iceland just to kind of get away from the US just for a little. I think the US is a little hot at the moment, just to kind of cool off. You know, it's just less doom scrolling. And so just to kind of calibrate myself, like, you know, why do we do what we do? I mean, I think we all, like, you know, why did you guys get on this path? Like, what brought you here? Was it to work for these big corporations, or is it another purpose? Like you want to create things that help people, or so it's definitely kind of, you know, I'm in this process of kind of reevaluating, like, is this just about making money? Is this just about, you know, power and positions? Is this about, or is this about something else? You know, like contributing something to you know, somebody or something as a whole. What do you think? Curious to see what other people think.
Yeah, along those lines, you know, design dialogue, right? Just getting back to the root of why you're doing this. I don't have enough time in my week to pause and reflect. And so that's why I was excited to join this, was just to say, wait a minute, okay, what are we doing here and why? And you're the future of this discipline. And, you know, maybe there's a next session where, you know, I'd love to hear where your heads are at, because that might inform my practice. But yeah, the thing that I find missing is that pause and reflect moment, you know.
Sounds like James is interested in a part 2 of this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the good stuff. I mean, like, you know, like Grayson is saying here, like the hardball question, you know, how do we address systemic injustices? I mean, that's such a incredibly difficult nut to crack, but I think it's you know, we're all having to face it at this moment. And so, you know, how do we deal with that as designers? I mean, my goal has always been to make the, you know, the most awesomest design that I can, you know, make for the most awesomest client in the most awesomest way. So, but having to think about, like, you know, the community and think about the politics, you know, how do I kind of make my community better, you know, just as a single individual, like, you know, how do I do that? It's not easy. It's not an easy journey. So, but, you know, those questions are here, and they're clear, and they're crystal clear. And, you know, you guys, I think, are going to be the generation that are going to have to fix this. I mean, I hate to sound like an old man, but I think that, you know, like, you know, I have a 20-year-old and he has a completely different view on like, sexuality or race than I do, like much more open. So I'm really interested to see what this new wave of designers, is gonna do to kind of break down that Berlin Wall that is out there now.
Any thoughts?
Everybody fell asleep.
I mean, on the rest of, if we're kind of segueing into Grayson's hardball question, with, I guess, just like the systemic injustice and racial issues, social issues, I think it's eye-opening for everybody. I think we all knew that, at least in the US, racism was an issue. I don't think anybody realized that it was so much at the forefront. And I do have to, I think Dolby did a fairly good job, at least as best as they could, of when the protests turning into riots started happening. They were very honest and open, and we had all hands meetings across the entire company and started setting up bi-weekly meetings to discuss racism within just the community as a group, and educate. I think a lot of people, myself included, just don't know the extent of what racism is. I have grown up fairly privileged. I'm a white male in the U.S., and so I don't face racism like a lot of our peers and our friends. And that was the biggest eye-opening thing to me, is just the pain of everything. And I was really happy with seeing kind of how Dolby started to bring up and kind of start that and open up that conversation. I think it was helpful and beneficial to me, and I think we just need to continue, and I hope that it's still there, that it doesn't just kind of fade away, because I think it's pushed. We've started to push in the right direction, but I am afraid that time will kind of start to bring this to the background a little bit more, and we'll be on to the next problem when this has been something that it needs to change. And so I think that would be my fear for that.
James, Cody, anybody?
Yeah, I mean, that question can be a whole nother session, right?
Yeah, it's a big one.
Session 3.
My father's African American, my mother's Japanese, and so I've experienced, different levels of racism and discrimination throughout my life. And luckily, I grew up, in Japan and Hawaii. Hawaii is very diverse. Of all the states to grow up in the U.S., probably one of the most diverse. But still, even with that, have had my share of experiences, and many of them are not maybe blatant racism or they were a little bit more subtle but recognizable. And now that this is a hot topic, for my daughter, for example, she's 17. She's very aware now, just because of social media, of what has happened in both recent history as well as historically. And only now are we having this dialogue, and I'm able to share some experiences I had growing up, or some of the stories that I've heard from my parents. They lived for a little time in Washington, D.C. And so African-American male and Japanese woman walking down the street, walking their dog. There was a couple that rushed out of their house with a shotgun and said, get out of my neighborhood. And these are things that, my parents didn't really bring up until, recently. And for my daughter to hear that is just shocking, right? You think of it as some distant problem, but it's within your own family.
Yeah.
And so how does that relate to what we're doing as creatives. You know, I don't have a simple answer, but even little things when you're doing, let's just say you're working on an app, or let's just use the app example. What personas are you using as the basis for your study, and why? I mean, so there's little things that you can do to educate yourself as well. I don't think there's any ready answer. It's really on all of us to really dive in and do some work.
Yeah.
So do you, not to belabor this point, but James, do you see a change? And if so, how is that change going to happen? You know, I think Lucas, you talked about Dolby. You know, there was a huge awareness within the company when this kind of rose to the surface. Same with my company. I mean, there was like a all hands meeting. You know, diversity and inclusion became like a topic of conversation. But I look at our executive page, and it hasn't changed. So like, is this, will this bring like a concrete change to our industry?
It feels like there's a willingness to change now, but it certainly hasn't changed yet. I think we're still at the beginning.
Yeah,
I think
maybe
awareness.
there's a process. Maybe it's a process.
Yeah, so I think there's awareness now in general, but not specifically. So if I asked, name 3 African-American designers, could you? Or 3 Japanese designers, or pick.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's just worth studying on an individual basis, and maybe that's worth its own course, even.
Yeah.
Curriculum.
Yeah. Hey James, what you just said kind of reminds me of there's a book called Design by Accident. Are you familiar with that book? It's MIT Press.
No.
It's kind of they're rewriting the history of design, and it's incorporating a lot of kind of design that it kind of happens organically, like everyday objects. It's pulling in a lot of things that women have designed through history that has never been recognized, and it's kind of rethreading how we think of design. It's not just like Corbusier, or some of the William Morris, but there's a whole community that is involved in designing, and it's kind of helping to it's really rethinking what design is. So I highly recommend that book, because it is especially kind of elevates the part or the contribution of women to design, and just kind of everyday non-designers that have to kind of make things. If you look around, like, everything is pretty much designed, but sometimes you don't think of a fork being something that is an elevated design object, but it still is. I mean, it's probably one of the more important things that you have. So yeah, I would love to kind of see what you think about that book if you pick it up.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Jason dropped a link in the chat for everybody if you want to check it out too.
Oh, thanks. All right, guys.
Okay, well, so those are all the questions we have in the box, and we've gone over 7. I think it's 10 o'clock your time, Stefan. Does anybody have one last killer question that you guys have been dying to know or you want to ask? You can either unmute yourself or drop it in the chat really quick. First come, first serve. Looks like you guys are all busy thinking about it, or not. I don't know. All right. I guess there's no questions. I guess you guys have thoroughly blown everyone's minds.
I think Elaine Choi, you're about to hit that unmute button.
Oh,
I saw that.
A call out.
Oh my gosh, I feel a little flustered right now, but
Yes, me too. You're not.
so I wanted to ask about, so if the resume is the first thing that you see from a candidate, what catches your eye the most? Do you see if there's like an 8-point grid system, or if there's a clear hierarchy? What do you look for?
It's not the first thing I look at. I mean, it's a complete picture. I don't even look. Yeah, I mean, if you have a beautiful resume, then it's going to catch my eye. But I think now I Google the name like immediately, and I look at your website, and I pretty much know within a few seconds, if you're somebody that I want to work with, associate with, grow with. It happens very quickly. Like I can totally see it like really fast.
Yeah, so, it's going to be that. It's like quick hit like that. It's the resume, but it is Google them, website, and you're going to see their projects, and are they going to be a good fit for you and for the position. I think that's
so it's more intuitive than anything. Just
I wouldn't say it's not intuitive. I think it's just making sure that, like, one, we'll get resumes and links that have kind of been filtered out of what we're looking through within the JD, the job description, and then I'll coast through some, and it's going to be like, okay, they misrepresented what we wanted, and this is strictly an industrial designer, and we need something that's going to be more experiential. And so you're like quick hits, like I need these kind of skill sets and this kind of design and this thinking process right off the bat, where I just need to make sure that's in line. And then it's like a little bit of a dive deeper if you kind of pass that first line. I think it helped, like, going to CCA, it obviously helps, like as far as a line on that resume, that checks a box, just because I've worked with a lot of alums from CCA, and I've had junior designers come from them. Stellar. So that helps for sure as a foot in the door.
Lucas is not being paid to say that, by the way.
It's just, you can kind of, I mean, there's the colleges that I've worked with junior designers for, like, that have kind of shown that work ethic and that passion, and I know what they're kind of, where they're coming from, and so that's an immediate kind of door opener. And so I think all of you guys have that, which is, it's great. And then you kind of have to prove the other half of, you're going to be able to fulfill all of my first kind of instinct or bias towards that, because designers come from everywhere. So it's, I think it's just kind of, you guys got one little leg up right now.
Yeah. I do think it's important to recognize that the resumes will go through at least 2 layers of filtering. One is within the context of HR. And so what they're looking for is, they're fulfilling a keyword search, right? So if I write a job description that includes certain keywords regarding the role, that's what that team is looking for, and they'll create a subset that then is forwarded on to me. And so within that, then I'm evaluating, typography. And if it's a design role, there's certain things that I'll be looking for separate from the content, right? Like, do you actually know design? And grid system or not, it's still, is it working as a vehicle to convey who you are, right? If your resume was just a link to your portfolio, maybe that works too, right? Because it stands out in that stack. But I wouldn't get too hung up on the resume alone. It really is to to both of their points. It's a package.
Yeah, and just have fun. I mean, yeah, I think we often forget that, you know, being a designer, I mean, it's really about joy. You know, you have to have that passion. You have to like, I mean you kind of have to be a little crazy to think that you can actually execute and solve the problem to begin with. So I think you kind of have to have that spirit in you, just like that, you know, I'm ready to kind of jump out that plane and hope the parachute is gonna pop open. So, you know, just be fearless. And I know that sometimes it doesn't come naturally. You have to kind of work on being fearless. So it's and then, you know, everything else that kind of falls in line, like all the check boxes. They're fairly easy to fulfill, but you know, passion and kind of the joy of designing, the respect for what you do and yourself. I think that's kind of harder to find. So yeah, don't worry too much.
Thank you. That was like the most superficial question that I could have ended this conversation on. So I'm really thank you for your insightful.
Stop. Now you're judging yourself. You need to stop that. It was a great question.
We've actually been working on her resume recently, so that might have been on her. And one of the examples that I sent her is actually minis, so that might be the correlation to you, James, because
oh yeah,
I told her the story about how when I first met you, I was like, how did you end up, you know, picking her? And you told me that her resume was on the top of the stack, and then you're like, oh, that's really cool. And then you took the deep dive afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, Elaine, one of my ideas for a resume when I was starting out was like, oh, what if I make a resume that is so big that it won't even, like, you can't even get it through the door? That'll get me attention. Yeah, that's what I was thinking back in the day. So yeah, you can't top that.
Yeah.
Any last?
At the end of the day, I mean, at the end of the day, I think all of us being creatives are all fairly lucky. The majority of my career, I've never really dreaded a Monday morning. There obviously are some, but I think for the most part, it's fun. It hasn't really, when it doesn't feel like a job, it's not a job. And I know it's said a lot, but I think being creatives and being in this position, I think it's good. It's exciting. And I'm happy I found my place here, because I had no idea what I was getting into when I started school.
Cody, do you have any thoughts to bring us home?
I don't know about to bring us home, but as far as the resume thing goes, I think I might have like remade my resume, like, and to James's point, like remade my resume for almost like every different application I put out, like to tailor it to the job description. So if you really want a job, like tune into what they're saying and try to like reword things, or, you know, tailor it to that. As portfolios too, I've done like different portfolio stack ups for different people, and I think it helps a lot. I mean, even if it's just the point of like you took the time to do that for them, can be huge. But on that note, I'm late for my mom's birthday Zoom call, which is actually true, but today's my mom's birthday, and I'm supposed to
tell her happy birthday.
So, yeah, from all of you guys, I'll give her the heads up. But so I got to drop now. But thank you, and I definitely want to be a part of a part 2 if that happens.
Awesome, thank you so much, Cody, for taking part.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, Cody.
Bye, Cody. Good to meet you.
And actually, on that note, we've gone almost about 20 minutes over. So to be respectful of your guys' time, we'll start to wrap up and everything. But thank you so much to Stefan, Lucas, James, Cody for taking the time out of your guys' schedules. I know from emailing you guys, you were incredibly busy. So
by the lack of response, you mean?
No, like just by talking with you guys. You guys are busy individuals. So thank you very much.
Great.
And I hope all you guys out in the audience who were here and left and are still here, I hope you guys appreciated this. And if you guys are interested, we will connect sometime about a part 2 next semester if you guys would like.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Thanks for organizing this, Josh.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. Great seeing everybody.
Stefan,
good luck, everybody.
Iceland.
Oh, thanks.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right, guys. That is it. You guys are free to disperse.